Welcome to Sunny's Mindset Lab. Today we have a very special guest, Jim Collins, the best-selling author of Built to Last. We're diving into the powerful research behind visionary companies and the habits that help them endure and thrive for decades.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to walk your listeners through the key principles behind visionary companies. What sets them apart, why they last, and how any organization can apply these concepts.
Jim, I want to start with this quote from F. Scott Fitzgerald, because it feels like the philosophical core of your findings. This idea of holding two opposing ideas at once seems to be a central theme in your work. That's exactly right, Sonny. It's the perfect setup. So much of conventional wisdom is about making binary choices. It's either this or that. What we've found, time and time again, is that visionary companies absolutely demolish this tyranny of the or. They don't choose between purpose or profit. They figure out how to have both. This ability to embrace duality, what we call the genius of the and, is fundamental to their endurance.
That's a fantastic framework. It sounds like we have a great roadmap ahead. We're going to start by tackling some myths, then get into these core concepts like clock building and this genius of the and then we'll dig into the tangible habits and how it all comes together. Exactly. We'll unpack the research step by step. Okay, so let's start with the basics. The term visionary company is used a lot. Jim, how did you and your research team define it for the book? What was the bar a company had to clear?
That's the critical starting point. We didn't want this to be our subjective opinion, so we set very strict criteria.
A visionary company, by our definition, had to be a premier institution in its industry, a true crown jewel. It had to be widely admired by knowledgeable business people and have a long track record of making a significant impact on the world. To identify them, we conducted a survey of hundreds of CEOs from major corporations, asking them which companies on this list do you most admire and would hold up as an enduring role model. The 18 companies that appeared most consistently became our visionary companies.
And this is where the research gets really interesting. You didn't just study these 18 great companies in a vacuum. You compared them to another set of companies. Can you explain that methodology?
This was the secret sauce of the study. For each visionary company, we selected a comparison company, a good, successful competitor that was founded around the same time and had the same opportunities, but never quite reached that iconic status. For instance, we put Merck, our visionary company, side by side with Pfizer. Both great companies, but Merck had this enduring purpose to preserve and improve human life, while Pfizer's goal was more typical, to be number one. By comparing them directly, we could isolate what the visionary companies did differently.
And that comparative analysis immediately started to bust some of the most cherished myths in business, didn't it? Starting with this idea of the brilliant founder with a perfect idea. It certainly did. This is probably the biggest myth of all, that to build a great company, you need a single, world-changing idea and a larger-than-life, charismatic leader right from the start. Our data just didn't support that at all.
So, if it's not the genius with 1,000 helpers, what is it? You have this fantastic metaphor. Clock building, not time telling. Exactly. A time teller is the charismatic genius who can look at the sun and tell you the time. They are brilliant, but when they're gone, nobody else can do it. The organization is just an extension of them. A clock builder, on the other hand, is focused on building a system, a clock, that can continue to tell time for generations, long after they're gone. The great founders we studied were clock builders. Their ultimate creation wasn't a product, it was the company itself.
You use Hewlett-Packard as a prime example of this. Yes, Bill Hewlett and David Packard were the quintessential clock builders. They cared more about building an enduring company with a unique culture, what became known as the HP way, than they did about any specific product they were making. They understood what Packard said here. The company itself is the ultimate creation. So for a founder just starting out today, what's the practical takeaway? Focus less on having the perfect idea right now, and more on building the organizational DNA, the culture, the values, the clock, that can generate many great ideas over the next 100 years.
That leads to another big question. We're taught in business school that the primary goal of a company is to maximize shareholder wealth. But was that the driving force for these visionary companies? You know, it's one of the most striking findings. While the visionary companies were, on average, far more profitable than the comparison companies over the long term, maximizing profit was almost never their primary driving force or fundamental reason for being.
And here we are, back to the genius of the and. They didn't see it as a choice between making money and having a purpose. Precisely, they rejected the tyranny of the or. It wasn't about choosing purpose or profit. They understood that the two are interwoven. They were driven to achieve a deeply held purpose and be highly profitable. to preserve a stable core ideology and stimulate constant change and progress. It's about embracing both extremes at the same time.
You call this bedrock the core ideology. What are the components of that? The core ideology consists of two parts. First, core values, which are the essential and timeless guiding principles of the organization. And second, purpose, which is the organization's fundamental reason for existence beyond just making money. For example, Johnson & Johnson has its famous credo, which clearly states that their first responsibility is to the doctors, nurses, patients, and mothers. Profit is essential, yes, but it is a result of fulfilling that purpose. That ideology is the anchor, the thing that is never, ever up for sale.
So how do these companies balance that? How can you have this fixed, unchanging core and still adapt and innovate in a world that's constantly changing? This is the central dynamic, the yin and yang of an enduring great company. They do two things relentlessly and simultaneously. They preserve the core ideology as fixed and unchanging, but at the same time, they stimulate progress. Everything, and I mean everything, from business strategies to cultural practices and operating procedures is open to change, but the core ideology is not.
And you found a powerful mechanism they use to drive that progress, something you famously named the BHAG. Tell us what that is. A BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, is the primary way visionary companies stimulate progress. It's not just a goal, it's a huge, daunting commitment. It's so big it feels a little scary, and it typically takes 10 to 30 years to achieve. A good BHAG is clear, compelling, and acts like a powerful unifying force that energizes the entire organization.
The book has some truly legendary examples of BAHGs. It does. Think of NASA in the 1960s, put a man on the moon by the end of the decade. It was audacious, clear, and totally galvanizing. Or Honda in the 1970s, when they were a smaller player, declaring this internal BAHG to absolutely decimate their rival Yamaha. It's that kind of emotional, gut-level commitment that separates a BAHG from a standard business objective. It has a gulp factor.
So, having a core ideology and a BHAG sets the direction. But how do these companies bring it to life day to day? You identified a set of very specific habits.
That's right. The ideology and BHAG are the what. These habits are the how. They're the tangible mechanisms that make everything work.
Let's talk about the first one, because the name is provocative. Cult-like cultures. That sounds a little intense. It is intense, and intentionally so. But let me be clear. This is not a cult of personality around a leader. It's a cult around the ideology. Visionary companies are not for everyone. They are crystal clear about what they believe, and they demand that employees either fit that ideology or get out. There is no middle ground. Think of Disney's intense indoctrination for new employees. You either buy into the magic and the values completely, or you won't last. It's about creating extreme alignment around the core values. What about innovation? Did you find that these companies relied on brilliant, long-range strategic planning? Not in the way you might think. Their method of progress was much more akin to biological evolution. They try a lot of different things, make small bets, see what works, and then amplify it. The classic case is 3M. The Post-it note wasn't the result of some top-down strategic plan. It grew out of an accidental discovery, a failed adhesive, and a culture that allowed for experimentation, tinkering, and serendipity. That's evolutionary progress.
And for leadership continuity, preserving that core over decades, you have a truly stunning statistic here. This was one of the most surprising findings. Over the entire history of our visionary companies, a combined 1,700 years, only 4% of their CEOs were hired from the outside. They are fanatical about homegrown management. They believe that the only way to ensure the core ideology is preserved is to promote from within, to have leaders who have grown up steeped in the company's values.
And the final habit seems to be about never resting on your laurels. Absolutely. There's a deep, institutionalized belief that good enough never is. Even when they are the undisputed leader in their industry, there is a restless discontent with the status quo. Procter & Gamble is a masterful example. They created a system of internal competition where their own brand managers for, say, Tide and Cheer would fight tooth and nail against each other for market share. This internal pressure ensures they are always improving and never become complacent.
So Jim, how do leaders make sure all these powerful pieces, the ideology, the BHAGs, the habits, all work together and don't pull the company apart? That is the final, crucial piece of the puzzle, alignment. A visionary company is a cohesive system where everything points in the same direction. The strategy, the hiring practices, the compensation system, even the physical layout of the offices, every single component is intentionally designed to reinforce the core ideology and drive the company toward its BHAG. It's about creating a beautiful, integrated whole.
As we wrap up, what is the single most important lesson for the entrepreneurs, creators, and leaders listening to us right now? It's this simple, powerful idea. Greatness is not a matter of circumstance. It is not about being in the right industry at the right time or having a single stroke of genius. It's a matter of conscious choice and discipline. Visionary companies are not born. They are built, piece by piece, decision by decision, over a very long time.
So you're turning the question back on all of us. That's the whole point. The research is interesting, but its real value is in application. The question for every listener is not about what 3M or Merck did. It's about you. What is the core ideology you are building? What is the clock you are creating? What is the core purpose you are committing to that is worthy of lasting for 100 years? Jim, thank you for sharing the principles behind Built to Last. This conversation will help leaders and creators build organizations that truly endure. It's been a pleasure. Visionary companies aren't born, they're built. I hope these ideas help your listeners create something worthy of lasting. This has been Sunny's Mindset Lab. Thank you for joining us. See you in the next episode.